All right. We are live and in the green room with Jay Alexander today. Hey, Jay. How are you?
How's it going?
It's going great. So, Jay, magician.
I'm doing great. How are you? Good to see you.
Good. And how's the sound? Can you hear me okay? Is there a delay? There seems to be a delay in our...
There is all of a sudden.
Yeah, the minute I go live, the internet decides, hey, we're just going to mess with you.
We're going to take away your bandwidth now.
I don't want to get off the topic of you and you're a mentalist.
Yes.
Is that what you say?
That is what
So I just read this thing that Cox Cable Company, this is a cable company in the Midwest, punishes their users for abuse and throttles. Good. And how is it? How is the sound and everything now? Is it better?
Sounds fine to me.
Okay. All right.
Much better.
So we went dark for a few minutes because I'll just explain this. So what I've discovered is it's almost like we are right. The minute I start a live stream, the internet goes to shit. Pardon my language. So I disconnect from my internet and I go to my cell phone and use my cellular data as the streaming source.
Really? And that's quicker?
It works. Right now, it's way better.
Amazing.
So that's my magic trick.
There you go.
Okay, so now let's get back to where we were. Tell me about your theater and everything you're up to now.
Yeah, so I have a theater in downtown San Francisco called the Marrakesh Magic Theater. And the past 3 years, I've done almost 400 shows every year at the theater. I do 2 shows a show, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and 1 show Sunday. And then usually do an extra couple corporate events, private parties throughout the week. And up until, the whole COVID thing closed everything down. But that's opened up January 1st, 2017, and been there ever since. It's been amazing.
400 shows a year?
It's crazy, yes.
And how many seats does the theater hold?
The theater is 45 seats, so it's a small, intimate venue. Mm-hmm. I have I have a lounge where customers come in. They have food and drinks in the lounge. You see close-up magic. Then everyone goes to the theater for the show. And with the idea of it being, it's a complete experience. It's more than just a show. I greet people at the door. They come in. I want people to feel like they got to spend this special evening and really be taken care of. And it's not like I'm the star, but I'm the host of a really fun experience, is how I look at it at the theater.
Do you have like a live musician or somebody playing?
We don't have live music, and I would, except for it's just the lounge is just big enough for the lounge, and the theater is just big enough for how many people can come fit in there for the show. I would love to have live music as well, but it's and so they come in, they sit down, we have a full bar, we have food. There's a restaurant upstairs, the Marrakesh restaurant, and the space was the first Moroccan restaurant in the United States was in my space. And so it looks like a Moroccan, not that there's speakeasies in Morocco, but it has that feeling of you're in a Moroccan speakeasy, that you step off the streets of San Francisco and you walk down a staircase and you're like, what is this? It's a pretty amazing space. And so I never would have picked the Moroccan theme originally, but it was already there and no reason to change it at that point.
Do you have a set show then that you do every night? Or
every night? The show, it's and I try to change it constantly because I have people that come every other month since I've opened. I mean, I have a few people that have been there, not everyone every other month, but I've had a few people that have been there 16, 17, 18 times. It's crazy. And then a lot of people that will come a couple times a year. So I try to change it up for them, but then I also hear from people, it's like going to see your favorite band. You want to still hear the hits. And, and I've worked hard to kind of create this thing of they're coming to see the personality just as much as, it's not like they're going exactly just to see the magic at some point.
So it's like a band. A lot of times I go see the band Tower of Power, for example,
Right.
the band that has people want to go see them now because they just know the guys in the band. And
Right.
not only do they like all the songs, but they just like to see the guys.
Sure. You've created a cult of personality at some point.
Right. So there's certain bits, I'm guessing. I'm just using my song analogy. So there's certain bits that would be like a song, like you have a hit, one bit that you do that everybody always comes to see. Is it that
Yes,
sort of a thing?
absolutely. And I want to change it up, but I also don't change it up as much as I thought I would when I first opened, because I don't have time to practice new things anymore like I used to. And it's a thing of, you don't ever want to put in a song that it's like, I know this song gets everyone on the on the dance floor, or really moves people. You don't want to change. And it's like, I'm not sure people are gonna like this song, and it's not great yet, because it's all the with. I got to imagine with music, it's the same thing. It's like, it's not just being able to play the song, but the nuances that go in to the song when you're playing it that makes it really good. It's like, yes, some songs are better than others, just like some magic tricks are better than others. But it's all the shtick that goes in between. It's those moments in between that really make it a journey. And I think the journey is just as important as anything else with any kind of entertainment.
And so with that journey is the audience has a lot to do with that journey, because a lot of your bits, if I'm not mistaken, involve people in the audience.
Absolutely. Yeah, you've seen the show. My show is all audience, lots of audience participation. I always feel like, the show's not about me. It's like the show is about us. That's always how I feel. I'm like, I'm bringing people into my world, and we're going to have a fun time playing together, is how I look at it at my shows. It's never about, hey, I'm the star, look at me.
So my guess is it's really fluid from what when the couple of times when I played the little drums and the things while you're doing, it's really fluid. So if somebody comes up and they're really an engaging personality, you might prolong the bit or something in
Absolutely.
order to milk their personality a little bit.
Yeah, it's like I'm kind of like, I know I'm starting here and I'm going here, and that's set every time. But anything people say or do, it's like they're going to be throwing out things, and I'm kind of taking them along. So it's like we have to get from here to here, but we might be going all over the place until we get there.
Right.
And if they're fun, if they're interesting, and for the most part, everyone's fun or interesting. If you ask the right questions, you get to know them, you're going to find some way, and you make them feel comfortable on stage. Too many performers, especially magicians, but all types, I think, they use people that they get up from the audience as props. And I'm like, they're not a prop. I want to make them feel comfortable, like they're in my home, and I'm giving them, and you treat them with hospitality and give them a good time. And you want to feel that I want them to all feel so taken care of that people want to be up on stage with me.
I'm wondering, you not only do you have to have your magic skills and be a personable person, but from what you just said, you kind of need to have some good interview skills. You need to know what to say to draw certain things out of people.
Yeah, and I think part of that is making them feel comfortable. Like those things that performers don't talk about a lot, I don't think, at least that I don't hear them. But it's, if you bring someone up from the audience onto the stage, do you hold your hand out and bring them up and help them? Like, do you help them and make them feel taken care of? And you see so many performers of all types say, what's your name? Where you're from? And they don't listen to the answer. And I'm always like, if you ask a question to somebody, you've got to listen to them. And that's the important part. So often you see performers don't care. They ask a question and it's like, yeah, I'm just asking this because I have to get to the next part. And I'm like, that is the important part, is those things.
So I'm also thinking then now, as you get into that show, when you do your little introduction and you meet people out in the lobby, do you do any sleight of hand things and that sort of the tradition?
Right when I greet them, I just say, hi, I'm Jay Alexander. I'll be at entertainment tonight. Thanks for coming. And I just explain, we'll be going into the lounge, for food and drinks. You'll see some close-up magic. Then we'll go to the theater for the show. And people get the food and drinks, and then I come in and show them some close-up magic right before going into the theater. And so it's almost like they, a little preview of what's about to happen, but I also want to be like, oh, we got to meet the star. And I don't, and I hate to say star where I hate that because there's too much ego in that feeling of I'm the star, but it's for the night I am the star. And so I want them to feel like, oh yeah, we got to spend time with him, and we got to meet him and know him, speak to him one-on-one, which, I think it's important, especially in today's times with like social media and those kind of things where people want to get to know it. And I was never a Grateful Dead fan, but I've been thinking about them a lot, how they were kind of like the first band that used social media before social media, where they let their fans tape record and give away and kind of promoted themselves so grassroots and built their thing that way, but it being able to connect with people differently.
They kind of created their own culture by doing that.
Yeah. And I find it fascinating, that kind of thing. And so that's when I went to the theater, I was looking at lots of different things from Virgin Airlines and, different companies. And it's like, all right, how do they connect with people in a different way? And creating the culture. It's exactly what you're doing. It's a culture of my little world when they come in. And how do I give them that magical world? Invite them into my magical world and let them play for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then they leave again. But it's
well, let me ask you this. Because of the coronavirus and the pandemic and everybody shelter in place, have you grabbed onto any of the social media, any of the live streaming stuff, sort of like what I'm doing?
I have not live streaming. I haven't. But I've done live streaming. If it's like Facebook or Instagram live streaming, no. I've been doing some shows, like Zoom shows, and I did one this past weekend. And it was the first. At first, my first thing was giveaway shows. It's like people are all in a weird place. Let's just, anyone that's been to the theater. And I did a couple free shows that was just, you're invited, and everyone kept saying put out a tip jar. And at first I was like, I don't even do a tip jar. I'm like, I don't want to get paid a few dollars for something that has a value to it. I'm like, I give it away for free or I charge. This past weekend I did my first show where we sold tickets, and we sold 180 tickets, and it was amazing. And I charged the same price I charged for my theater, and it was instead of being per seat, it was per household or per device. And so I am doing that now. I'm going to do it Father's Day. We'll be doing a show again. And so
is it, do you do it through Zoom?
I did it through Zoom. Yeah.
And because on this particular platform that I'm using, the only way I could monetize Switcher is that I would go through my website. And then in order to get into my website or get to see the show, you would have to do it
through the website,
into my website, and pay to get into it.
Right.
Zoom actually has a platform that you can use PayPal.
So, I did it through my same box office as my theater. And basically when they bought the ticket, they're sent a link, and that's how they get the link. And it's
And do you do it in your theater then? Do you go down and set up a camera, or do you do it from your home here?
I did it from my home. I did it right here. I live in Sausalito, and just did it right here from my living room. I was going to do it at the theater, but the Wi-Fi at the theater is in downtown San Francisco. You think would be great. It's so bad.
Well, let me tell you from an audio experience, whenever you get into a city and you want to try to use any wireless thing, forget it. It's just it's the worst.
Right.
It's the worst. So, tell me a little bit about your home, though. This is a floating home.
It is a floating home. I live in Sausalito, and basically, it started before then, but basically, it's in the '60s, after the Summer of Love. A lot of people don't realize the year after the Summer of Love was the Summer of Hate. Hate Street in San Francisco was only a year long, which most people don't realize if they're not from the area. That the Summer of Love really was one summer, 1 year, that whole hippie kind of thing. It
was like 68 or something, right?
Yeah. And so the following year, it got really dangerous. And a lot of the intellectual hippies moved to Sausalito. And not all of them. People came from different places. But a lot of it was the authors and poets came to Sausalito and started building these homes on the water to live off the grid. And there's no living off the grid. There's a couple homes here that are $3 million, and they're just, nowadays. There's some of these just beautiful, huge floating homes. But now there's about 600 people, a lot of artists, but people that have lived here. It's an amazing list of authors, poets. I do every show a year, every year I do this show, and David Crosby of Crosby, Stills and Nash is there. And so I've seen him once a year for 20 years now. So it's not like we're friends that I call up and say, hey, how are you? But when you see someone every year at the same time, you kind of get to know each other and talk. And right when I moved in, I'm talking to him, and he says, he goes, I just moved to Sausalito. And he goes, Gate 6? And I'm like, yeah, how do you know? It was so weird. He lived here, like right down the way. It's a pretty interesting thing where now it's still a mixture of artists, CEOs of companies. Like, it's the biggest mix of different kinds of people I've ever met in one neighborhood.
It's sort of, as you were describing it, it seems to suit your personality pretty well. It's a little eclectic, and being the magician mentalist that you are. And then I want to get into a little bit about what you do, so people can kind of get a taste of it. As you described it, I'm thinking you couldn't be living in more of a place that sort of fits your personality to some degree, or am I?
No, I've never felt more at home than living here. It's like when I was 18, I moved to San Francisco from Texas and lived in the Haight, and I loved it. And I felt like there was a scene that was happening of people doing, whether it's music or art or whatever it was, and people were doing stuff. And then San Francisco got to the point where you can't afford to be a starving artist in San Francisco anymore.
No,
it used to be that time of you had a bunch of people would live in a flat in the Haight, and you're young and you didn't care if you're sharing the flat with a bunch of people. Now the same flats, everyone's paying a couple $1,000s per room, and it's $10,000 for the same flat a month. And so when I moved out here, it's like I loved it just because I'm 5 minutes from the city. I'm literally right across the Golden Gate Bridge, and it's just kind of interesting people, and everyone's doing something or has done something and had an interesting story to them. And then I find that great. It's just
well, speaking of stories, how much does a story play a part in your show, in what you do, in telling a story about your the bit you're going to do, the trick, it's not illusion. You call it mentalism or mentalist.
The style of magic I do is mentalism, or being a mentalist. I say what I do is mind tricks, and it's because I mix magic and psychology, and I say magic, psychology, and lies is what I always say, but it's human lie detection and memory stunts, and I've all this kind of eclectic stuff I've put together to create a show that's not your typical magic show. And so it's not what people think in their mind of a magic show. It's not that at all. And so I just call it mind tricks.
Mind tricks. And how is it different? Do you have to go about it different doing a Zoom or?
Yes. But you know what? My show's always been interactive, but even with the Zoom, it's like when this whole thing happened, my thought was I jumped on it really quickly doing a show just to try it. But I was like, most people are standing in front of the camera, the exact same place, trying to connect the exact same way, and they don't move. And my feeling was people are now on Zoom calls so often, if they're a business person, that it's like, all right, how do you use the whole screen? Can you move back? Can you move forward? Do you get close to the screen? Do you move back? How do you make it a theatrical experience? And in every show or concert, there's a reason when you see a big concert, there's costume changes and backdrop changes, and you need to add color and stuff to the show to make it interesting for people. And so I had to I looked at my show and I'm like, all right, how do I do that? How do I have something fast, something soft, something and slower? How do I have something with deep feeling and something that's just visually fun to watch? And I think it's kind of like a great concert. Doesn't matter how good the musician is. You want to have, Kiss is, if you look at a band like Kiss, they have they're gonna have all their fast songs, but then they're gonna sing a slow ballad. And so, I look at it the exact same way of like, all right, how do you give texture to the show so it's not the exact same sound the entire time?
Did you play music or do you do?
I didn't, but growing up, when I moved here to San Francisco, I lived on Haight Street, as I said, and I worked at the I-Beam nightclub, which is a kind of a music venue. And I watched so much music, and that I was probably influenced by a few bands more than I was by any magician. And some of the bands weren't even bands I musically liked or loved, but I watched, people like Chris Isaak. I was so inspired because he'd come into, at the time, a smaller club where he could be working a big club and do one night. He would do 2 weeks straight. And I remember him coming into the club and hanging him and the whole band, they were hanging tiki lights and everything. This is before they became really famous, but they were right on that cusp of it. And they hung up tiki lights and hung things on the walls, and he made the venue his venue. Whoop, did I just lose you? Oh, there you go.
No, I'm here.
And my screen went dark for a second. And he hung up all this stuff, and I was like, and at the time I'm like, I didn't think the music, it wasn't like I loved this music, but I watched it, and I'm like, he turned the place into his world. And that I loved. And I'm like, and I saw other bands kind of come through, and some people that really had a show. And so when I look at my show, I'm like, no, I want to be somebody that could be like a singer-songwriter. It's like take the best singer-songwriter first, and then you add production to it. And then that's when I feel like you got a show. So I never wanted to be the person that has the production, but the other people are gonna be like, that's not that good. I wanted to have kind of the meat, really have content and real meat there, and then build a bigger thing around it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So in your house, do you put up, what do you do? What do you move back and get closer?
I do. Yeah, no, I do some things, like I'll do a lot of things where I'm really close to the screen, but then I'll do something with another camera that's just close up on my hands.
I see.
I'll sit back a little ways and do something. Actually, you want to see something?
Sure.
I'll show you something brand new I'm working on.
That would be great.
Here we go. I have to move back a little bit. Let's see. I'll turn this down a little bit so you can see it better. All right. Actually, okay. So the record plant. Come close to you first to show you the record plant recording studio. I don't know when you lived in the Bay Area, did you ever go there?
I never did.
No,
so I should have.
It's an amazing space. So they record a lot of great albums there, like Rick James, Fleetwood Mac, Metallica, Bob Marley, Prince, Santana. I don't know if you can see these very well. This is like brand new. No one's ever seen this. You're the first person. Heart, Grace Slick, lots of albums. Sly and the Family Stone. What we're going to do is I'm going to go through them, and you can say stop, and we're going to make a line of 4 albums. So you can pick any 4 you want. Just say stop as I'm going through them, and say stop whatever you want.
Stop.
Now I can use the Prince or Santana.
Let's use Prince.
Prince. I'm going to place that right here, and we get 4 albums. And you can use Santana, we could use Heart, whatever you like. Grace Slick.
Yeah.
So we have Prince, Grace Slick, Sly and the Family Stone. We can start back at the beginning if you wanted. Joe Satriani. Stevie Wonder.
Stevie Wonder.
Stevie Wonder. We have Crosby, Stills, Nash. We have Huey Lewis, Starship, the New Riders, or Mariah Carey.
But yeah, let's do New Riders.
New Riders. All right.
New Riders, yeah.
So here's the thing. 4 different albums. Now I've got this little piece of paper that has your name on it. Jeff Dust. Now, Jeff.
How'd you do that?
All about you. Pardon me?
How'd you do that?
This is all about you, my friend. This is all about you. You picked 4 albums. It's not exactly about the albums, but I was seeing if I could influence you to pick those 4 albums. You see, on the back of each album, there's a number. Like Prince is 59, Grace Slick is 18, 3, and New Riders is 13. Now, you're probably thinking, what does this mean? 59, or let's go this way. 13 and 3 equals 16. 16 and 18 is 34. 34 plus 59 equals 93. And if you don't believe me, you can get out a calculator and check it. On the back of this says
Oh,
90.
man, come on now.
Now it all adds up, but here's the thing. We're going to make this more difficult. I'm going to put down a bunch, and we'll mix these up, of all the rest of the albums. And you can tell me, I'm going to switch any album you want. We'll switch like Mariah Carey. If you want to switch it with something else, we'll switch them.
Do Sly Stone.
Slice Stone, let's see. Slice Stone
and number 3.
And no, one of the ones of the albums that are faced up.
Oh, the ones that are faced up. Switch it with what is it right below 59? What's that one?
Right below that would be Metallica's Reload.
Yes, switch those.
Okay, and here's the thing: you could pick row. We did the column or the row. You could pick column 59, 18, 3, or 13.
I'm going to pick 18.
18. So we've got Starship is number 6. We have Heart, 12, and 57. 6 and 18 is 24. 24 and 12 is 36. 36 and 57 also equals 93. Your number, Jeff. But Jeff, it does get better. But first, we can switch anyone you want. If you want to keep switching them, we can switch them.
No, that's can you do they add up diagonally?
Oh, you went diagonally. All right, well, here we go. Well, check this out. Diagonally, 58 and 3 is 61. 61 and 12 is 73. 73 and 20 is 93. The other way. 18 and 10 is 28. Plus Santana is 60. So that's 28 plus 60 is 38. Oh, wait, no. Is 28 is 88. 88, that would make this 5. 88 and 5 is 93. Now, here's the thing. I could turn them all over. Every single one of them. Horizontally, vertically, diagonally. They will all add up to your number, 93. Jeff, this is all about you. But not only that, the 4 corners, 10 and 20 is 30. 30 and 5 is 35. 35 and 58 is 93. Jeff, this is all about you. The 4 inside squares, 18 and 3 is 21. 21 and 12 is 33. 33 and 60 is 93. These 4, these 4, these 4, and these 4 all add up to your number, Jeff, 93. This is all about you, Jeff. But not only that, Jeff, when is your birthday?
June 10th.
June 10th, tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
June 10th, 1950.
Oh my God.
Jeff, this is all about you, my friend.
What the? Oh my God. That was crazy. But the 1958 thing, that tripped me out, man. How'd you do that?
Very well. That actually is brand new. You're the first person to ever see that.
Oh man, that's almost like a Sudoku thing or Sudoku or
on steroids.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my God. So that's the kind of thing. Can you do that like in a Zoom thing with people? Can you pick somebody out?
I'll do that. I'll do something like this where it's just like I'm holding a piece of paper with a paper clip, and I'm gonna say we're gonna play that game where like I say a word, and the first word that comes to your mind you say, and we're gonna do it 3 times. So if I said the word red, what would you think?
Blue.
Blue. And if I hear blue, I might say sky, and you say something.
Water.
Water. And if you say water, I'm going to think Avion water. And what comes to your mind?
Diet Coke.
Diet Coke. And do you drink a lot of Diet Coke, or that's just?
No, it just whenever it's like a treat when I do gigs, I drink Diet Coke. Otherwise, I never do.
Right. So here's the thing. So we started off with red, and we got to Diet Coke. So it's kind of strange that whole thing. If we got there that way, piece of paper I've been holding the whole time. It says
Oh,
diet.
God. Come on,
So
man. No. Oh, no, come on. Oh, no, that's weird. All of a sudden I feel like you've read my mind or something. How'd you do that?
you feel violated.
I feel violated. Oh man, that's crazy. So when you do that with other people, do you do anything like with hypnotism or any of that kind of stuff? Have you
I do a few things, but it's not like serious hypnotism. It's the basic ideas of hypnotism. I've studied hypnotism, and it's more of the it's called the induction of getting people in and getting them basically into a state of mind. And so it's more in the show. I'll use that very lightly to get people feeling a certain way.
Mhm.
And but it's not like I'm not making people cluck like chickens.
Oh, so you wouldn't go like, okay, Jeff, bark like a dog or anything.
Yes, and I want to be like, and sleep.
So, and how do people? I'm guessing they get the same reaction I just had. Like, how do you do that? Uh, do you ever have? I mean, I'm guessing people are always coming like, man, how do you do that?
It's yeah, for the most part. And I try within the show. I try to have to take them down the road that they just give up and they're just like they go with it and have a good time and get out of their mind a little bit during the show. It's what I hope to do. It's like, and then they go home and they think about it a lot. And I get emails all the time from people after the shows. They're like, we spent days talking about it. You know, we came on vacation to San Francisco and then for weeks we were talking, discussing at the dinner table.
Well, and here's what I would have just on what you just did with the numbers.
Yeah.
The preparation and figuring out how to do that. Does it take a lot of time getting a bit together?
It does, definitely. And it's just like you, I've done thousands of corporate events until I opened up my own theater. And so it was always for me, I've always customized my shows to the company. So it was always me thinking going a little more in depth with the show. So it's really special for them. And it's not just the same show, just happens to be for Apple computers tonight. And it's sometimes it is, but for the most part, I really try to go that extra step to really personalize and customize every show.
Mm-hmm.
And
do people come to you and say, okay, the CEO is such and such, and we need it to be this, and make him be something or figure out something?
But a lot of that is, and I do some of those still. The past couple of months I've done none of them, but it's for a long time. That's when I'm not in the theater and for the corporate events. It's sometimes it would just be my show, and some of the huge sales conferences, I would be there just to make the CEO magically appear or do something special with them so they look like the star. And and some of those are, some of my biggest gigs of my career. I'm on stage less time and get paid the most because it's like you're there to make the CEO look good, and or make a product magically appear. And I've done everything from making motorcycles appear on stage for a company to
So let me ask you about this, because what you just did, what you call mentalism, or that is a completely different skill set or type of magic. In what you were just describing, is that more of like illusion?
The other one would be more illusions. And how I started was more just a regular magic show, is what is what I grew up doing. And when I was younger, I wanted to do big illusions like David Copperfield.
Mm-hmm.
And then slowly found my own way and found things that I felt were a little more intellectual, and especially because most of my career until I opened my theater was doing corporate events. It was like, you started seeing like what the Silicon Valley crowd really, what resonated with them more. And I've always been a performer that I don't want to do just because it sells. I want to figure out like, these are the things I love, and out of these things, what will people buy?
Mm-hmm.
So I still want to feel like an artist at the end of the day.
Right. So what does it take to make a motorcycle disappear? And it's a whole different set of
It's a
things.
whole different thing, and it's here's the weird reality of magic. There, and people argue about the exact number between 9 to 12. There's only like 9 to 12 different tricks you can do. You make something appear, you make something disappear, you make something float. And with each one of those, there's only so many ways you can do it. And so you kind of then it becomes, how do you dress this up to look different? If I put it towards music, there's only so many notes, and it's how you put the notes together that makes a good song.
Right.
And
Right.
with magic, it's the exact same thing. And then it's just like, how do you dress it up to look different and sound different? And
And it kind of brings it back to the story and
yeah,
how much a story plays a big part in it. And so the experience, I think, of what you're talking about, especially in your theater, is the story of the bit you're doing with the person and taking them on that little journey. Um, what how many bits would you do in a show? Like, and how long is your show? Like an hour
the
or hour?
show's about an hour and 15 minutes, 75 minutes, most nights, sometimes 80, 85. But and I do probably 10 to 12. I should know this exactly. I could actually can't tell you what to. Actually, there's 14 bits that I do. Some are longer, some are shorter. And then even within it, I usually tell a story about how I got into magic as a child. Um, and, I had a terrible speech impediment, and I have terrible dyslexia. And so I tell a story about how I got into magic, and it's because of magic, it brought me out of my shell, and it made me want to read, because to learn magic, especially then, you had to read magic books. It was the best way to learn. And so I would pick up the books and I would read them cover to cover, even though I have terrible dyslexia. And the weird thing is, sometimes I would learn things right. And sometimes, if there wasn't a lot of illustrations, I would think I was learning it correct, and I'd make up my own way and not realizing it. I'm like, I think I'm doing it this way. And other magicians would watch me and they're like, how did you do that? I'm like, oh, it's from so-and-so book. And they're like, no, it's not. And, you're doing it complete. And it's like, oh, I guess I made up my own move that I didn't realize.
Yeah.
And it's,
well, how did you get into it as a kid? What was it that drew you?
I went to see Doug Hinning. My grandfather took me for my 11th birthday to see Doug Hinning, who was the big magician at the time. And afterwards, I was like, I want to be a magician. And I ended up getting a magic set. Afterwards, went straight to the mall. My grandfather bought me a magic set. And that magic set, I got obsessed with it. And my mother was a single mom, worked at a children's shoe store. And I'd go to work with her. And even though I was shy, had a terrible speech impediment, I wanted to perform the trick so bad, I would show customers the magic as they're waiting to be helped. And I'd go every day after school. And so when people talk about like getting 10,000 hours, I did it from the time I was 11 all the way through high school. I was in her store every weekend showing people tricks. And then one day someone said, you do birthday parties? And I said, all the time. And that was my first gig. And I've literally never stopped doing it. It's all I've ever done.
Wow.
And
That's kind of the way I did drums. I started
yeah,
playing drums when I was 11, and I said, that's all I ever want to do.
yeah. And
So you never did you go to college or
I
anything?
did. I moved. I was in high school, and I got a scholarship to the San Francisco Art Institute but it only had a scholarship for 2 years. And when that ran out, I was like, I don't know what a degree in fine art is going to be about. I'm like, and I've always had this thing of like, if you want to be an artist, just be an artist. Going to school, it's like going to school to be an entrepreneur. You don't go to school. You might learn business classes, but you don't learn to be an entrepreneur. If you're really an entrepreneur, you're going to be out hustling.
Right.
And
I a lot of what we do in the entertainment business, and even with musicians, sometimes they don't really seem to get it. They just want to be really good musicians and forget that the most of what success is entertaining your audience and being available to your audience. And from what I'm getting from you, that's the important part of what your show is
the
involving
show is that the being good that's my thing. That's for me.
Right.
It's like, that's my hobby. What I get paid for is doing it for them.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, I really do believe it's not about me, you know, or the musicians. Like, you've got to get your ego out of it. It's about them.
Right. Have you, when you are doing a show, do you ever have something that just isn't really working out? And how do you and I don't know why I'm thinking this, because I can't imagine something not working out, because what you just did to me, I'm like, what the, you know? But sometimes when I'm playing in a band and we just think we just did the best ass kicking version of whatever it is we did, and we all stop, and we're like, wow, and everybody's just sitting and staring at us. Does that happen to you? Because I'm thinking about some of those corporate crowds that we do, and they're just nerds, you know, and they just sit stone faced.
Right. And after I opened the theater, I had a different view of all those corporate gigs. Like, I think you did one in LA with me once that was for Wells Fargo, I think.
That's it.
And it's what I like and hate about it was you have to win over the audience. And I always felt like in a good situation, there's a lot of magicians that are going to do great. But it's that having that ability to turn around a bad situation and make it good. I'm like, that's why you get paid more money, is having those skills to, and then once I opened the theater, I'm like, I'm able to create my audience in the field every night. And because they paid money, each person paid money, they're ready to have a good time. When the corporate shows, half the time I'm introduced and I'm like, really, a magician? You know, that's the attitude. And you know what? I'd have the same attitude if I was sitting in the crowd.
Yeah.
You know, I get it. And so it's that thing of like, all right, how do you win them over and take them on the journey? That's, you know, and I do feel it's like, that's what you get paid for. Like, just like you're saying with musicians, there's probably guys that are way better musicians that don't make any money because they're wanting to do their thing and they don't care about the audience. They don't care. They don't even get why they're there other than playing the music. So it's,
when I'm leading a band and I'm thinking of a song and I need to get people to dance, there's always like a go-to song. You got to do Brown Eyed Girl or Brick House or
yes,
stupid.
All the songs I make fun of, but I understand.
Right.
Yes.
So what is, if you come out and you're sizing up the audience, what's your go-to trick? Like, okay, this is the one I'm going to have to do at them.
I usually do a thing where I, especially for corporate events, and I'll come out and I'll either have like $500 or $1,000 cash and I wave it around. Like, in a moment, somebody here is going to get a chance to win $500.
And it's real money.
It's real money. And I do this kind of human lie detection game with them where I give them an object. It could be a coin. It could be a ring. It could be whatever. Put it behind their back. They come out and I tell them which hand it's in. And I show the audience the psychology of how I know which hand it's in. And, you know, and I'm like, it's in your right hand, it's in your left hand, it's in your left, you know, and they play usually 3 times. And then I'll bring up a bunch of people. So at that point, by the end of it, I've been nice to everyone. There's money, there's like tension because there's money on the line that I know it's like, oh, I've got him now. And that's like one of the things, but it's also, it's funny. I'll have other performers watch what I do and they'll say, you know, not understand why it's working. And I'm like, it's working because it's not just the trick is good, but I had people up on stage that I took such good care of. And that's really important. That part of it. And I made them look good, even though they didn't win the money. And every so often, I'll tell you, I did one show and it was CEOs of banks and their spouses. So it's mostly guys and women, but I'm pretty sure 100% of them, but I'm not sure. And it was, and I come out and I'm going to play this game first thing. And this was like I could tell it was going to be a tough audience because every one of them was very wealthy if they're the CEO of a bank. And I come out and I say this, and I get this woman up and I do $1,000 thinking it's got to be a lot that makes it worth it. Playing for $100 is going to be nothing. And the first time I go to do it and I get it wrong and I'm like, and I hand her the money and I'm just like, oh shit. And it was, and the whole audience is watching and I'm like, If it happened later in the show, the crowd would have been going crazy that I just gave this person the money. I didn't get the satisfaction of having the audience go crazy. They're all like, what is this? Like, they're watching because they don't like me yet. They don't know me. It's first thing I did, and I lost the money, and I'm just like, all right. And I still won them over, but I was like, I got nothing out of that. And the woman the whole time is taking the money like, real? You're giving me this? And it's just like, yep, you won it.
In other words, it would have been, you would have lost more money, but it would have been a better effect had it happened at the end.
Oh yeah, if it happened at the end, it would have been the same amount of money, but the effect at the end, if I did the end of the show and the whole audience loved me, and then the person won, they would have had so much fun playing the whole night that they would have gone crazy. But this was like, they're like, what is this? They're just giving away money? Like, they couldn't even figure out why some guy came on stage, said, put this behind your back. Oh, he's wrong. He sucks. Here's some money. Go.
Next, get the hook. Yeah. Well, so a couple of things are coming up when you're doing that. The people, when they leave, they're feeling really fun and energized from it, and the other people sitting out there are thinking, okay, what's he going to do next? Can I get up there?
Right, and that's why I do stuff like that in the beginning, because I know. Just like a good song gets people, will get people dancing, and then you can play what you want to play a little more.
Mm-hmm.
I do that because I know it's like, oh, it's going to put them in this certain frame of mind that they're going to be ready to play. They're not that they're not going to be made fun of, so they're ready to go.
Right, and I think some people, some comedians and magicians and people we know have the experience from the audience, and they sort of make fun of them in a way, make a joke out of them. And one reason why I always liked Jay Leno, for example, and even Jimmy Fallon is they never do that. They never make fun of their guest. They always, and do you find that
Johnny Carson was the best at it? Johnny Carson, it's like he took care of his guests.
Right. And even to the point where he would always be the butt of he was the first to be the butt of the joke.
Yeah.
And Ed McMahon set him up so well for that sometimes.
Right. And I think a lot of comedians and performers do it because they don't have, it's like they're either scared of their material or don't have material. They're scared of what they're going to say or don't have anything to say. So it's easier to make fun of them.
But, excuse me just for a minute, but you just moved it, and I just all of a sudden noticed that chair in the back.
my Liberace couch.
Oh, my God. That looks like something I'd see at the Regency Ballroom or something, except it's not red.
That was when I first moved here. I see online there was a wedding store going out of business, and they had like this funky, weird furniture. And I went out, I was like, I love this thing. And they're closing up and selling their stuff. And I'm like, I was like, I don't know if that's the ugliest or greatest couch I've ever seen.
No, it's great because I'm looking at you. I'm seeing your shirt in your head. It's cool. But then I'm looking, you're talking about the Haight Street. I'm seeing red carpet, purple. That's a purple wall, I think.
Purple wall, yes.
And the blue couch and the gold tree trunk. Is that a gold?
It is a gold tree trunk.
I'm thinking this is San Francisco at its finest.
This is my Pee-wee's Playhouse.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's my design aesthetic, I think, is a mixture of either whorehouse or candy store.
What? So the Marrakesh theme that's almost like the paisley shirt that's
it's more, our place. This place, it feels very Moroccan, and
Moroccan.
Yeah, it's completely of this Moroccan field because there's tiles that was put in the 70s, and our ceiling was like this hammered. There's like hammered metal. It's super detailed, and it was a restaurant in the 70s that opened up, and which is kind of amazing that the first Moroccan restaurant was open in the 70s in America. And they went really far with the architecture of the place. And so when I found it, I was just like, this is great. And a friend of mine was in there before as a theater, and I just like I took over the theater from him. But it was just like I thought about changing the whole theme, and then I was like, why it would cost a fortune to make this theme, and it feels magical. And I looked at it like kind of like Disneyland, where it's just like you walk into this, you're transformed into another world, and I love that.
And sort of how your house feels.
Yeah, it is.
I couldn't do the color thing like that and just throw the couch. My kids would look at me and go, "Dad, no."
My kids do also, but they're at college.
I didn't know you had kids.
Yeah, my kids are both in college.
My
daughter actually is graduating. Tomorrow's her last day of class, and she graduates from University of Oregon.
Oh, wow. And what's your other?
My other son, Max, goes to just going to Santa Rosa Junior College, and he's working, and then he wants to transfer to UCLA.
Wow. That I didn't know you had, all this time. I didn't know you had kids.
Yeah, because when we're working, you don't deal with the kids.
We never talk about family. We just talk about jokes. The other thing that I was just thinking about, an aspect of what you do, in a way, you've got to have a good sense of humor and be almost a comedian in a way.
Yeah, yes. And I try. I definitely, yes, I do agree. I don't think I'm a comedian, but it's like, oh no, I think through things like it's a joke, and I write things, and I don't want to set up in a punchline like most comedians would have, because I want all the jokes to come out of creating tension and releasing tension, because I'm still trying to get from point A to point B with every trick. So then I'm always looking at what are the funny things that can happen in between those things. So it's more the asides that I try to write jokes for, but never set up in a punchline like a normal comedian would do.
So you actually do write out your bits, am I calling it right? A bit?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of routine, whatever. Yeah. And everything is, I've written out scripts like crazy, and then I try to throw it away so it doesn't feel memorized, because I hate when you see an act that looks completely like everything said exactly the same tonal intonation every time, and it feels fake. So I've written it out, I memorize it, and then I try to throw it away as much as I can and just keep the important parts in there. And I go, about every year, I'll record my show and send it to somebody, because of my dyslexia, I can't type it myself. I transcribe it onto paper. And so then I almost have like a new script, and I could go through that and start cutting things out. And I'm like, all right, too many words here. How do I say this better? And I'm constantly it's almost like a sculpture. They keep adding clay to and taking away clay and trying to kind of keep form to get to be the best, make it the best sculpture I can make it.
So I'm thinking back to your theater and all of this that you're doing. I'm doing the math, 400 shows a year. I mean, there's only 365 days. So you're doing a lot. That is a ton. And with the way things are going right now with the, staying at home and it's slowly opening up a little bit.
It won't ever be 200 or 400 shows a year. I don't think. Now I'm going to be like, but that's okay.
Well, this is what I'm wondering, as you go and do some of the Zoom things, what's the possibility of you going back to the theater, having a few people come in and live streaming and selling tickets at the same time?
That is probably the plan. And I've looked at so many different options, trying to figure out what to do. Because from day one of this, I'm like, okay, no excuses. It's not, even though I do get upset of like, oh, I'm paying rent downtown San Francisco and I'm not in it right now.
Yeah.
But I'm like, all right, what can I do? And where can I work? And, can I find an old movie theater or an old outdoor drive-in movie theater and do a show? Can I, where are the places? Can I, in Napa, in Napa, can I get together with a winery and do a show outdoors somewhere in some of these wineries that have nice outdoor theaters?
Right.
And I'm just kind of constantly looking for where else can I do this now?
Yeah, the one gig that I thought I was going to keep when all of my gigs started tumbling, I thought I was going to keep I have a shopping center gig that was 3 days a week, where I was just walking in and doing sound for entertainment that came in 3 days a week all year long.
Wow.
And I'm thinking,
that entertainment at the shopping center that often?
Yes.
Wow.
3 days a week. And it was just, a guitar player or a keyboard player, but it was almost
Right.
like the old Nordstroms where they used to have the piano.
Sure. The piano player.
And it's a high-end shopping center in Santa Monica. And I was going, okay, well, at least I'll have that and that will pay my rent. But then when everything shut down is what, and it's possible that because it is an outdoor shopping center and they put their entertainment out in the middle of the plaza, the big center area where people can socially distance. So I knocking on wood that would be a kind of place that would open up for something. And I wonder if that kind of thing might even be suited for a magic, what, like Pier 39,
Yeah.
something like that. You know how they used to have that thing
Sure.
at the
And they still do. And I used to, but that's still closed. It's all going to be closed for a while.
yeah.
So, and I grew up doing working at Fisherman's Wharf doing shows, at street shows. Don't really want to go back to that, but it's I'm not above anything. My ego is so out of this that I'm like, well, whatever it takes to work. But it's but I think the theater will be able to come back soon. It just when, and if it's not there, it might be somewhere else. But it's I think the formula will still work. Just and it might be slower, but keep hustling it.
I really think that also the Zoom thing and being able to sell it to corporate meetings are still doing their things.
Right. The problem so far, and I don't think it's going to last for long, but because I've talked to a lot of people about it from my corporate clients, there's and I keep getting these calls because they've never done it. They have no way to budget it. Like it's not in their budgets already, and they don't know how to value it. So, and I think there's so many performers going out so cheap for those things where I'm like, I don't want to compete with that. I don't want to compete. I don't want to race to the bottom, which is what happens so often.
Well, and I don't want to jump on that, but an agent down here called me and said, a CEO guy, that has lots of money, said, "Hey, we're going to start having little parties at our house. Can you get us a guitar player or something to come and play?" And she goes, "Yeah, sure, I can do that. The musician would love to get out." And the guy goes, "Well, can we get them for $100? They really would need the money, so they wouldn't take their full rate, would they?" And she said, "Well, yeah, it's a full rate. This idea, how do you put value on it? Like you just said, they're used to spending money for the big deal, but now they're going, yeah, no, maybe they'll do it for less."
Right.
And I wouldn't ever want to do that.
No. And I'm kind of like, I refuse. I'm like, you know what? I'll change career. Like so far I don't have to, thankfully, but my feeling is I'll change careers before I do that. It's just like, I understand if someone doesn't have it, but when I feel like when some of the companies want that and they're acting that way, I'm like, no, I'm bringing a value to you now that's worth more than ever because you're not paying for the convention center of the hotel ballroom anymore.
Right.
You have bigger budgets, actually.
Yeah.
It's like now you've got to make your Zoom show more entertaining, your meeting than before. You actually should be paying more money than you paid for it live if someone figures out how to do it well for you.
Absolutely.
And yeah.
I think that you've got this benefit though of having the theater and being able to do that and do things from there eventually and have a few people. There's a club down here called the Baked Potato, and they're started to live stream things, and I think that will be moving forward even as they open back up. It may be a way to generate some revenue along with having people in seeing the live show.
Right. And I think with everyone, from magicians, musicians, everybody, it's just figuring out you can't do it the same way exactly as you used to, and figuring out what's the best way to use this medium. And it's, my first show was like 3 days after the shelter in place in San Francisco happened. And so I jumped on it really quick. And after the show, I'm talking with some friends and I was like, I don't know if this is the best thing for that medium. Like magic might suck for the medium, but I kept wanting to work on it. And it ends up, I think it's actually a fairly good thing, but I was like, well, what would be good? I'm like, well, game shows on television have always done well. Maybe a game show. I don't want to do game shows, but that might be the thing. And it's like, is there a way to do music? And while you're playing on a live stream kind of thing, turn it into a little more like a game show with people. And
Yeah.
can it be, especially if you're doing it local, where you do it like a game show, it has something where someone can win something, and you have the local pizza place deliver pizza during the show to the winner's house. Kind of, it's those kind of things, or if it's and I'm like, because that was my thought right away. I'm like, can I get local sponsors to sponsor me, and then somehow do that where like there's something from a local restaurant that gets delivered, and then they become part of the show, part of the event.
And it would be advertisement for them too.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's like they're sponsoring it, and I'm using them somehow in it, and it's making it fun. And I mean, I do think even though the virtual shows are cool because now we can go internationally in a weird way, I still believe in marketing, building your audience, and if you can build it locally, and I think local is pretty important right now.
So we're at an hour.
Okay.
And I just want to get this in. I want to make sure anybody can find out. I've had your website up here, jalexander.com. They can find out information about your club and everything.
That's me, or San Francisco Magic Theater.com is my theater website. But J. Alexander, there's a place to take you there also from there.
Okay.
JALexander.com or San Francisco Magic Theater.
And they can, and your Zoom, your show you're going to do on Father's Day, that's still open to the public.
That's actually good. Tomorrow we're going to start opening up for tickets for that.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
And last thing before we get off here, thank you for doing this with me. It's been
thank you. Good to see you.
Do you have any little bit you could do to wet people's whistle for what they might see?
Oh, you just saw a bunch of them. Let me see. Let's see. I'll find some here.
Oh, every time you move, I see a different color. I mean, is that a monkey? Wait, what is that? Is that a little
my monkey table? Yes.
Your monkey table?
Yes.
and the red door. And I mean, oh man.
I live in my own Pee Wee's Playhouse.
That's
I didn't have anything but here. I've been working on new stuff since I've been home. I've been working on a bunch of new stuff. For instance, and because I couldn't go out and get props or anything, it's all stuff with everyday objects. So what I've got, it's just a little thing of gum, a little Trident gum.
Yeah.
Check this out. Keep your eyes on the gum. Watch. One, it's going to happen. I'm going to tell you. Usually with magic, magicians don't tell you when it's going to happen. I'm going to tell you it's going to happen on 3. Check this out. 1, 2, 3.
Okay, I don't know how you did it, but it was cool. I love it.
Thank you. If you know how I did it, it'd just be stupid.
Yeah. All right. So that was great, Jay. Thank you so much. We've had people tuning in, and hopefully some more people will tune into your show. You're going to start selling tickets tomorrow. Yes. Good to catch up with you again. And when you decide to go live music, let me come and play the cajon or something, or bang on the tambourine or something.
Absolutely.
All right,
buddy.
All right, I'm gonna take us out as in our usual my usual manner. Thank you, Jay Alexander, for joining me in the green room today.
You're welcome. Thank you, man.
Thank you, Jay.
Take care.